Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practical Prepper Podcast. The episode today, we brought back our friend Andy. He's been on, I think, 4 times before this. He's a fan favorite, and we run the gamut today. We talk about government overreach, and we cover China, North Korea, Russia, Australia, the US. It's a fantastic episode, one of my favorites we've ever done, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Practical Prepper Podcast. My name is Nick. I am your host, and back again, I think we decided maybe for the 4th time, is our friend Andy, international man of mystery, knower of all things, predictor of the invasion of Ukraine. Andy, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Glad to have you back. Excited for today's topic. So, and today's topic is kind of, we're taking a loose grasp to it, but kind of what sparked maybe the need for this topic was about a month ago when New York out of nowhere posted the nuclear attack PSA, and it was very strange and it caught a lot of people off guard. It reminded me of when they used to wheel out the TV when you were in 3rd grade and they would put on a very strange kids show, and they tried to play that nuclear PSA off as so a nuclear attack just happened. Don't ask me why, but it did. And they were the tone was super weird. So then it got brought up in one of the Facebook group, Valley Food Storage Group, Disaster Dry Run. And there was an overwhelming consensus on it that nobody was worried about there actually being an attack. Everybody was saying, this is control. This is them putting this out there to control the masses with fear. So we were talking about it, and we thought it would be beneficial to go through government overreach and maybe other times that it's happened, tactics that have been used in the past, just things to look out for. So,
well, yeah, so think about it. You saw New York do this thing about nuclear war, what to do in the event of a nuclear war, whatever, eat your neighbor, who cares? But then you also saw this in the Cold War where Cuba was going to launch the Russian missiles, the Cuban Missile Crisis. They're going to launch Russian missiles into Miami, and here's what you do, hide under your desk. Probably wouldn't work for a nuclear missile, just saying. But they had that going on. Same thing after 9/11, right? They had the color coding system, and you'd wake up every morning from after 9/11 until Homeland Security did the color coding system.
Yeah.
You'd wake up every morning and be like, is today a yellow day? Is it an orange day? Do I need to go outside with my gas mask? What's going to happen? They're driving this up. I assume at some point, at some level, there's somebody that thinks this is a good idea. But then, when it hits the masses, it's just no, this is a terrible idea. We should not have done this.
Right.
And they dropped the color coding system for terrorism after a few years. But you used to see that every day as your daily briefer comes in, and it's today's threat level blue, today's threat level orange. And it would scare the crap out of you. It's because they wouldn't tell you anything past that, right? Same thing with nuclear ad. They don't tell you anything past that. They just say, be ready just in case. Today's threat level orange, be ready just in case. It's we might think that there's a threat that might happen at some point in time. It's do you have better information to tell us? No, we can't tell you that. It's classified. But
the ultimate fear.
Yeah.
I can't tell you any of that. It's classified, but just get prepared.
But yeah, literally just go through the rest of your day knowing that something somewhere could happen. If you're in Nebraska, you can get shot in the face. We don't know.
Yeah.
But, run through the rest of your day, possibly your week, with this fear in mind, just in case.
Yeah, and it was just so bizarre, the way that they laid out what the city looked like. Number one, the city that it was posted, and I'll have them post screenshots of what we're talking about in the actual article so you can check them out. But the city itself looked like a mild explosion went off. If a nuclear bomb was dropped onto your city, there's no outside anymore. And by them telling you to just go inside, get in your bed, pull the covers up, and wait for it to be over. That's not how it works. You're going to be waiting for it to be over forever because you're just going to be vaporized. Such a strange way to go about it. And I think it was the mayor even commented on it and was it was for no real reason. We were just releasing it. Then if you're going to release it, why publish it on Twitter and all your social media accounts? If you're going to release it, just release it quietly and have it on the back burner.
Yeah, do a soft launch or something like that. But for anybody listening, go to nuclearsecrecy.com/nuke map, and it'll pull up a map, and you can detonate any size nuclear bomb over your city. It does like Google Maps, and it'll do things like that just to show you blast radius, casualties, radioactive fallout, things like that. Just, so you can guesstimate that. I'm sure most of your listeners have already been there and done that. But it's the same thing. So we're now in this new Cold War 2.0 nuclear era because Russia invaded Ukraine, and then we've got, every other domino is falling in the list between Iran, North Korea, China, everything else like that. So it's like the threat of nuclear war is higher than it's been since the last Cold War. I mean, it is. I don't anticipate anybody launching nukes tomorrow.
Right.
But I mean, it's definitely there. At some point, and this is just me spitballing here, so take it for what you will. And I don't know what happened in the Russian invasion of Afghanistan in the 80s. I don't know how overt we were with supplying the stingers to the Mujahideen and the Mujahideen and stuff like that. I would have to go back and look at newspapers or something like that. But I mean, we're pretty overt about supplying HIMARS and javelins and like other weapons to the Ukrainians right now. And at some points, like the Russian citizens will only say, "Hey, so there's American weapons killing my kids. Let's escalate this a little bit more." At some point, I assume that's going to happen. I'm just spitballing. I hope it doesn't happen.
Right.
But normally, you want to do this stuff covertly, so they can't say, so they can't tie it back to you directly.
Yeah.
For this exact reason.
And it does seem more serious than I can't even remember what the time period was, but when it was like Kim Jong-un for a while, like every day you wake up and it was on like the front page of the news, like he's testing missiles, he's threatening to, he's got one that will come all the way over here. And it was like every day it was different. And it really seemed like the narrative of every media channel was pushing, like, is today the day? But this one seems like
a little bit more serious.
Yeah, a little bit more serious.
Because it's not Kim Jong-un and the Russians, the Russians and the North Koreans are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the North Koreans just sent like 3,000 soldiers to fight for the Russians in Ukraine, probably because they needed to eat. So,
wow.
feed your army with food or whatever. But yeah, the North Koreans, nobody was concerned about that. They're like, it might be able to hit Alaska, it might be able to hit California. Maybe, we don't know. We can probably intercept it, good to go. Also, remember the message in Hawaii when the text message went off with the nuclear alert system? I actually had a buddy who was there, and he was in Hawaii visiting his mom or something like that. And he got the alert, and he just he just started texting people he loved, and was just like, "I'm sorry, I love you," blah, blah, blah. He was texting his wife and shit. Like, he thought it was real. Nobody thought it was not real. Wow. So, yeah. So the nuclear alert system went off, and people were like, "Oh, we're about to die."
How long ago was that? I do remember it, but
2016, 2017?
Yeah.
The dude I knew who was there was a driver for a 4-star from Northcom, but
I mean, he honestly took what I would feel would be the correct path. If that buzzer goes off that it's imminent, like what are you going to do? You need to make your peace.
Yeah.
Pray to whatever God you believe in, text all your loved ones and just say, I had a good run. Because
and think about the fear that drives. And then from that example,
horrific.
Yeah, from that example, everybody in Hawaii still that's a stigma you still have. People didn't know that system existed. No, I don't think most people knew that system existed.
Yeah.
And now you know that it's whoever will send a random text to my cell phone because the carrier has this deal that says if there's an emergency, we'll send it to you like an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's, oh, there's a nuclear bomb heading for your position. Good day.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? That's how do you and then how do you so that's a lot of fear. That's fear driven by, somebody that is not in your immediate sphere. It's pushed to you.
Right.
The fear is pushed to you. So then how do you start dealing with that? That's a big take.
And it could be anything. And this is again, spitballing, also being really out there, but say if it's chemical warfare, you get that notification that's you can't leave your home or you need to do this. I mean, now you are, and not an anonymous, but a powerful text message comes through to every person in a geographic area that says, do not leave your homes. How do you know, can I actually leave my home or is this something else?
Yeah, and I think somebody, one of your listeners can double check me on this, but I think something like that did happen maybe when the sarin gas or one of those things was going around. There was at least a small area that got hey, nobody leave because XYZ. I could be misremembering. But yeah, that's kind of the world we live in, right? So you go back into your lockdown like they did for COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The
definition of government overreach. Yeah. Stay in your house or else.
exactly. You need these, you got to get these certain, if you are going to leave your house, you have to have this paperwork that proves that you're allowed to be out and about, that you are who you say you are, and you're going where you say you're going. I remember the day that I got handed those papers, like, if you're out and about, you need these. I'm like, so now if you get pulled over, you got license, registration, and you got to show me your like COVID travel. My freedom papers. I was like, this is insane. And that's what earlier I think I asked you, like, when do you remember the first time you ever thought like, oh, the government is encroaching on my freedoms? And that to me was one of the times where it was like, it honestly like hit me hard in my chest, like kind of terrifying.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the same thing for me. I've never seen, up until that point, I'd never seen that kind of power just put over the masses. Like, you can do this, you cannot do this. Like, everything's shut down, stay in your house, you can't do this. I didn't know that could happen. I had not planned for that in my head. It never occurred to me, never dawned on me. I mean, think about was the people in California and New York City, like, they were like, here's your 1 hour of exercise time per day. Like, you got your yard time. Yeah. Here's your yard time, boss. Make with it what you will. Like, and you're outdoors running with your mask on. Because, I mean, at some point, and in the beginning, there was a lot of fear in the beginning. The government was helped drive that. They were like, hey, here's the deal. You can't buy masks because you don't need masks, da-da-da. And they said that so they could buy all the masks, so they could give them out to their healthcare workers and things like that. But it was like, and then like 2 months later, they're like, no, everybody needs to mask up, yada, yada, blah, blah.
Now that we've got ours.
Yeah, now that we've got ours, you're good.
Here's the crumbs of what's left.
Yeah. Oh, here, spend X amount of money, 10X the price for a mask.
Yeah.
Because somebody was on Amazon buying them in bulk because they knew this was going to happen.
Somebody.
Yeah. Somebody.
Air quotes.
Yeah. And then they're flipping them for profit.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. I remember right when it first happened, you could get masks, and we had them. Like, we had a whole bunch of them, and we'd had them for a long time because we used to sell them with there's like food, water, shelter kits and stuff that we had offered, and they had masks in them with like a little ventilator on them, and we were getting that, for pennies on the dollar, and then you don't need them, now you need them, and then when you need them, they're $5-6.
Yeah.
Because somebody.
Yeah, I think it was specifically the N95s, right? That's what it was.
And then remember when this is so crazy to even recount that this was a real thing. When the N95s were then not allowed. If you had the ventilator on them in the airport, it was like, you can't even get on this plane because you've got because that mask allows for germs to go through the ventilator. It protects you, but it could infect somebody else if you have the disease. I
mean, at some point, I'll give as much benefit of the doubt as I can, because at some point somebody was like, we don't know what the heck's going on, so we have to over exaggerate things because you'd rather be too safe than not safe enough. I get that at some level, but at the same time, I did not know that anyone would ever exercise that much control just over the populace at large.
Yeah.
And then you can look at China. So that was what, the March of 2020? Is that when that started? Lockdown started?
Yeah.
So then China is still doing the lockdowns up until like a week ago. They were locking down parts of the southern China and things like that because they have the zero COVID policy.
Isn't Australia still that way? The last time I checked, you couldn't still even send mail there from the U.S. because the restrictions are still so intense.
I believe it. I don't know the answer, but I believe what you're saying. I'm not sure. I mean, the fear was just driven to all new levels. And then so we rolled from that straight to where we are now. We've, changed the definition of recession. We've got Cold War 2.0. We've got the misinformation, disinformation crowd. Everything is, everything's propaganda, and you can't believe anything you hear, but unless it comes from an official source.
The changing of the definition of recession was another time when I woke up and I had heard that Wikipedia did not allow you. Now you can no longer toy with the definition of recession. Someone else can. They can, but you no longer can.
And who is they? Who is they? Just for clarification.
Well,
the big G in government?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can change the definition of recession. We're not allowed to change it back to what it's been for quite some time.
What is that? You think that's going to make everybody just feel hunky-dory? I mean, I feel like now at least the benefit of let's lock everybody down, like people quickly were like, oh, I don't like this and I'm not going to do this anymore. Which now, if they try to do it again, people would be like, hell no.
Yeah.
We already did this once. I'm never doing this again. And like with the recession thing, what do you expect? Everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, I've always believed everything they said. And yesterday it said we were in a recession, but today the definition's actually different. So now I feel a lot better. I have more money in my pocket. I can afford things again. Inflation is not a record-breaking high anymore because the big G in government and Wikipedia says we're not actually in a recession, but nothing has changed except some words on a page.
Exactly.
Which is, it was insane. I can't, and when I went there, like, I forget what I can post a screenshot of that as well, but there was a message at the top of the recession page. I don't know, is it still like that? There was like a thing that said there are limitations on this page that you can no longer edit, or you have to submit it, and an admin of this page will then approve what you're saying is true, which is not how it works on any other page except that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't see anything. It's not up there again, but they said, hey, you have to go to the talk page to do something here.
Yeah,
So,
I used to have it, but.
I mean, yeah. So the interesting thing is you've got FINRA, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which does all the testing for all your series licenses and things like that, so you can manage people's money and whatnot. But they have a definition of recession that you're tested on when you take your exams. And it's not the definition that the new government has. So, like, are they going to change theirs too? Or are we going to change the rest of the world has to change their definition?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, like the Wikipedia page said in the U.S. this is the definition of recession. In the U.K. and the rest of the world, the definition of recession is still 2/4 of declining GDP.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's different. Yeah, we changed it. It's just different for us now.
It says that in the United States, a recession is defined by the National Bureau of Economic Research as not the definition according to the rest of the world. So we've got that going for us, which is great.
Wow. That is.
Like you said, we've got more money in our pocket right now. Everything's working out well.
Yeah, I'm a lot better off now that they did that.
Yeah.
I mean.
You're not paying $6 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks or wherever.
No, absolutely not.
Of course not.
I was not very thrilled with that one. It's just a strange feeling. And even though it's not it didn't directly impact me in any way because, like I said, I didn't get any more money and inflation didn't go down. But it's just like one of those things, how people say, like, how many little freedoms will you just sit by and let be peeled back before it's like, because eventually if it's like, okay, take this away, one of those things that they take away will directly impact you and you'll be like, oh, I should have done something 9 steps ago.
So since the lockdown started, they had this thing where you didn't have to pay back your student loans.
Oh yeah,
that ends at the end of this month. You have to start, like, the student loan suspension or whatever it was ends the end of August.
Yeah.
So you're back. Whoever wasn't paying their $450 a month and they were keeping that extra money in their pocket, they're going to have to spend that again. Yeah. And that's another charge that they have and for money that they're not making.
And it's hefty charge depending on how much your
underwater basket weaving degree costs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just more money you're going to have to spend. Obviously, I mean, you knew what you're doing going into it, but more money you're going to have to spend that you didn't spend last year.
Oh yeah, it's like the belt tightening that we talked about. Is it's still coming.
Yeah,
it's not like we're done tightening the belt. We're right in the middle of it. You've got a few more notches, I feel like. Yeah,
there's a lot of people that said they're calling the bottom here. They're like, no, this is the bottom. We've got record jobs, record employment, record earnings and stuff like that. I'm like, record earnings is because everything costs more, so their top line's obviously going to be more.
Yeah.
Nobody stopped. Like, consumer spending has not gone down yet. It will soon. The housing market's cooled off, and you're seeing the changes. I don't think we're at the bottom yet. The people who say we're at the bottom now, they might be on something. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the bottom yet.
Yeah. And the cost of goods or services or really anything is also can be used as control. Like, eventually when you get priced out, isn't that what is said that's going on? Is like there's a whole class of people that eventually will not be able to afford virtually anything.
Yeah, houses, for example, like, the houses just got priced out. They're like, the price has gone up so much just because of inflation and the supply and demand that people are priced out. Same thing. And then did you see in the news the other day that now there's going to be, over the next 10 years, there's going to be 87,000 new IRS agents?
Oh,
in that bill they just passed recently, they have enough money to pay for 87,000 new agents of the IRS, which means, that extra $600 purchase, you sold somebody something for $600 on Venmo.
Oh, is it for that specifically? That
I don't think it outlined it that. However, if you have more IRS agents, they will be targeting more of the middle class. I don't think they're going to randomly target the rich.
Right.
Yeah. I think they're going to target the people who have side hustles and dudes who have, had LLCs for the last decade and, realized tax breaks and things like that. So.
Yeah, they'll be hitting those middle of the road people.
More control. Just drive it up there. 87,000 IRS agents. I thought it was
imagine. So did I when it first happened. That and when I read it broken down of I bought this mountain bike and I don't want this mountain bike anymore, so I sold it for $601. Well, now at the end of the year, technically I have to pay taxes on this thing that I already paid taxes on. I mean, what?
Yeah.
And absolutely absurd. That's a huge government overreach in my eyes. They're just that's eyes everywhere. That's eyes on everybody's bank account who makes over $600 undocumented dollars.
Yeah.
I mean,
God forbid you do commerce.
Absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And then add this into just the amount of spending. Talk about Ukraine. Talk about the Cold War 2.0. Sending another $1 billion aid package to them. They're talking about today. We just sent HIMARS over there. I mean, the world is changing around us. It's getting real interesting. It reminds me of the 50s, and in the 50s, 40s, 50s, up until the 70s, I think they had this thing called the House Un-American Activities Committee, which it was designed. I'm not a fan of socialism or communism or any of that nonsense, but it was designed for subversive Americans.
Mm.
And it was, I think, it comes down to the Red Scare in Hollywood and things like that. And there was the Hollywood blacklist of directors and people like that, and they were Russian agents and communists and socialists and things like that. And they wouldn't be able to make movies. They weren't able to work. Kind of if you put AOC in Hollywood, she would not be able to have a job.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things. But now she's in Congress. So it was one of those things. But the House Un-American Activities Committee was a legitimate committee designed to prosecute these people. Kind of what we're seeing today with the whole the recent FBI documents that came out about domestic extremists. Yeah. Quite a few people got rolled up in that. If you have a Betsy Ross flag, if you have a Gadsden flag, if you have the Spartan stuff, which I looked at
Punisher skull.
The Punisher skull. So 60% of the military is now domestic extremists.
You mean to tell me all of those hillbillies who have a Punisher skull, a red, white, and blue American flag, Punisher skull on the back of their truck, I need to watch out for them because they're a domestic extremist, a violent extremist?
According to the FBI, yes, you do. They're literally the scourge of the earth now. I think that was bad analysis. I really do. I think it was the analysts that wrote that document were just they saw two of the same thing. They saw, two people got arrested and they had, the Punisher skull. Well, the Punisher skull is now associated with domestic extremism. I think because it's poor analysis. There's no way somebody can say these just giant popular things and say that something so popular is, it might be. I think it's bad analysis or disingenuous analysis.
But it is disingenuous, but they probably saw this as an easy opportunity because a lot of those symbols got put in front of all of America with the White House raid. Lots of flags, lots of symbols, lots of stuff everywhere. So they figured lots of people know what this looks like. They might not know what the meaning is, and then they did see it when all of those people were in the White House. So they were thinking this could be an opportunity to seize some of these symbols.
Yeah. So they saw it on TV. They're all right, everybody saw this. Now it's associated with domestic extremists. Like they said, libertarians are also. The one guy said, people like libertarians are also domestic extremists. Okay, that's an interesting thing. You wouldn't expect that. It was former director of the CIA or something like that.
Yeah, how is anybody anything? What about all the people who don't know, who haven't seen those documents? For us, that's kind of commonplace for that to come across your desk or somebody send it to you hey, check this out. But there's got to be literal millions of people who have those tattoos, flags in front of their house, the stickers on their car, T-shirts, hats that have no idea that as of a few days ago, you're a domestic extremist.
Yeah.
now.
And so here's the question.
Which is kind of dangerous and strange.
Do they get targeted now?
Right.
Like if you get pulled over for speeding and you have signs of domestic extremism on your car, like what happens?
Right.
Are you like, does the cop, I mean, the cop might have the same tattoo. You remember? So what was
yeah.
the Uvalde cop? I know this gets into a different realm of things, but the Uvalde cop had the Punisher skull as the background on his phone when he was sitting there not doing anything.
Oh, the guy in the video who's checking his phone. Yeah.
His background was the Punisher skull. Domestic extremist.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other can of worms.
That's a whole other can of worms. That's different.
Cracked open, but wow, yeah, I actually didn't know that. I didn't hear that he had that as the.
Yeah, it was a background on his phone. So I mean, he's obviously a domestic extremist, as you know, most people are now with Punisher skulls.
Yeah.
If you've watched The Punisher on Netflix, instant domestic extremist.
Absolutely, you're on the list.
You're on the Hollywood blacklist. This is the same thing. That's exactly what that is.
It's also that is like and that's another thing that people might not think about it that way, but could be viewed as government overreach or control. Like if we say all these symbols out of nowhere, and honestly, these are leaked. So really it was never supposed to be anybody knows, but somewhere in the shadows, hey, these are all symbols of domestic terrorism. Anytime you see these, you need to treat this person like X. So now all of those people, now you've been dumped into a different bucket and you don't even know.
I mean, even if nothing else, even if you don't treat them like X, you at least need to mark that they're on this list. Like, so let's say you pull somebody over to have this Punisher skull. Maybe there's a directive that comes down that says, hey, so if they have these symbols, signs and symbols, then you need to mark it in their file for their driver's license or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, like gang tattoos now. Like, oh, you've got a blood tattoo, you got a crypt tattoo, mark it down, take a photo of it, something like that, so we know who we're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's just because we see this document, does that mean these people now get put on lists? Do you get targeted that way? Is that, it'll only come down to bite you in the butt later on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. They'll make the list, and then if they don't need to use it against you now, they can use it against you later when they need to use it against you.
Yeah, so I don't know, that one. That's another one that is recent. That's just this it caught me off guard and took me a few days to really sit and think about it, and then realize that this is not that great.
No, I mean, let's find some other good examples of government overreach and government fear mongering. Remember the Iraq War? We're still looking for those weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
They've got the yellow cake. It's like the Dave Chappelle skit. They were like, nope, we just got invaded. Somebody tried to kill my father.
Yeah.
You just have to go after it.
Yeah.
Still trying to justify that one. We never found any weapons of mass destruction, but the government was telling us that it was there for a whole year. I mean, that's a very common thing now.
Yeah, I feel like that one was so intense and clouded by the acts of 9/11 that maybe it was less apparent kind of what was going on.
Maybe. I don't know. Now, when you talk to people who were, like our age then, they all say that they saw through it, but I was younger.
Yeah.
So I don't remember. I was exactly like that. I was like, 9/11 happened. Everybody's getting it, is what it is. I was buying into the BS, but I was a young man. So that's what that was.
Yeah. I remember my dad talking about it. We actually just talked about it the other day, and he was like, yeah, I mean, every day was like, you would go to work, but it was like everybody there was like, is this going to be our last day at work? What's going to come down the pipeline? Like, he said it was a really, really bizarre time.
Yeah.
It's got to be, I don't know, maybe reminiscent of like COVID and how bizarre and how every day seemed kind of uncertain, maybe right there at the beginning.
Yeah. And it drives up the fear, drives up the anxiety, and you have to deal with that every day.
Huge fear.
Right.
Like that had to have been the ultimate fear.
Like the news is just sitting here making all this money from selling you the anxiety and the fear. They're not helping by any stretch of the imagination, because that's how they get paid.
Yeah.
They get paid via clicks, and they get paid to drive this up and make you afraid. Every day there's a new thing to be afraid of, because that's, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. But it seems like now, since like what happened with COVID and all of that, it seems like people are really desensitized to the fear. Kind of like, they post and they say, here's nuclear attack PSA, and people are immediately like,
memes.
Nope. Yeah, it's turning into memes, and there's no way that I'm not believing this is real. This is you trying to force me into some box that I am no longer going to fit into.
I mean, which is a good thing, right? Yeah,
it's great.
Be your own person, be a free thinker.
Yeah.
You don't want, like you said, you don't want them to put you in the box of just fear after fear after fear, and then you just lock yourself inside.
Yeah.
And you become a crazy cat lady.
Well, I've heard that like the new one, I feel like, is now, since COVID's kind of, people are over it. It's just like it's in the past now. It's just kind of like a thing that exists out there. Whatever side you're on is the side you're on. But with like the Ukraine war, I was watching people talking about it, and it's like the whole talk of like the food shortage, the famine that's coming, of like the effects, the not right now, but in the years to come, the effects of them limiting the imports and exports of like grain and things like that are going to be a massive. And like how I just got done saying, people aren't going to believe that stuff. That is slightly terrifying, because you could easily see how it could be true.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the wheat shortage, the first time from 2014 in Ukraine, when the Russians invaded Crimea, that wheat export shortage then is what caused, or was a significant driver of the Arab Spring in Egypt and like the whole uprisings, because Egypt is one of the major buyers of Ukrainian wheat, and they're going through a lot of pain right now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other places are as well. But so the Russians and the Ukrainians made a deal. They said, all right, you're now allowed to export wheat from Odessa. And like the day after the deal was signed, like rockets started hitting Odessa at the port. Just, they're like, yeah, we'll do a ceasefire so you can get your ships out. The next day, boom, just started dropping. But there's like, the Russians have stolen grain shipments and sent them to Syria and then like Lebanon and stuff like that. Yeah. So the Russians are exporting grain for their own benefits, because they can make money off of this, because they can avoid sanctions by making all this money. The same thing, they're exporting oil and other things to India. India's paying them for it. So I mean, Russia's avoiding sanctions pretty well, but the government is going to drive up the fear for the wheat, and I don't know. I don't know if the answer is. I don't know if the answer is to not fear a wheat shortage or not. I mean, I feel like Ukrainian wheat is going to slow down everything right now. I think, you and I both know people that have been buying cows, like wholesale, and just meat in bulk and things like that.
Yeah, you got to get those. Yeah, buying whole cows, keeping them in freezers. It was this, and I'm not promoting this guy or anything like that. I don't feel any way about anybody, but it was this, that Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this. So that's Peter Zeihan, I don't know, is he talking to him in that post, or is that his? So Peter Zeihan's a very smart dude. I've read his last book. I haven't read his most recent book. He kind of predicted all of this a few years ago. Super smart dude. He's you can follow. He's on YouTube. He does like updates on YouTube. He's got some things going on. Great books. But he explains how the Russians were going to do this because just depopulation in general.
Yeah.
And just like the belt of grain between Russia and Ukraine is all they have, and it's getting depopulated. I don't know. He explains it very well. Super smart dude. Highly recommend looking into him. But the stuff he's saying is not wrong. He's predicted this for quite some time up until now.
Yeah, what he's saying, and the fact that he is so smart, and what he's saying in this particular interview with Dan Crenshaw, which is on his Instagram if you want to go check it out, is that this famine that will begin at the end of September, I think, is what he says, that will he believes it will end up resulting in over 1 billion people dying because of the lasting effects of what they've done with the grains and how they've ruined the land. And even says in there, not necessarily it won't be that bad for the United States because we're such a massive exporter of literally everything. But he's but for the planet, the third world countries and things like that, who are very, very dependent on the export of grains from Ukraine, is going to be very bad. Very, very bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. We're going into this. So the export of the grains, also there's a fertilizer shortage because of
he talks about that as well.
Shortage, but I mean, he's right. There's a lot of agricultural stocks the prices are jumping right now. I don't know what the futures look like today, I think they might have sold off some, but then you look at if the futures are low, it's because people who are buying physical products will buy the physical products and they will short the futures in order to get arbitrage off the prices just in case there's an influx. So, I might be getting that wrong about how that works, but somebody fact check me on that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the government's going to continue to drive up the fear over the wheat. We've got a lot of things coming out of the pipe. This is Cold War 2.0.
Yeah.
So we're this like double-edged sword. We've got on one hand, we've got the government is ratcheting up the fear and control of the populace with this domestic, just like, if you have a Punisher skull, you're a criminal.
It's from all angles at this point. Everything we've talked about is like a different angle. So it's like, we can't get you with one thing. So we're going to get all of these spearheads pointed at you like, they're right at your neck.
Yeah, and maybe this is exactly what a Cold War is. I mean, we haven't even really talked about China and their involvement in this stuff and the Taiwan stuff that recently happened. But maybe maybe this is what a Cold War feels like. We weren't around for the first one.
Right.
Maybe this is, just the geopolitics of the world is just getting out of control. At least when, to a degree, I'm going on a stretch here. At least when it was Afghanistan and Iraq, I mean, you were focused on specific things.
Right.
Like you had places on maps to focus on bad things, and you could put all your effort in focusing on those bad things. Obviously, a lot of other stuff happened, but for the most part, that was the main effort of a lot of things. Now it's like just global chaos is going off.
Absolutely, it's like every day it's
something new.
It's something new. Like you said, we have all of this that we just talked about, and then like the China and Taiwan thing just daily developing.
Go look up the Taiwanese, everybody at home can go look this up. Go look up the Taiwanese semiconductor executive who just got smoked in his hotel room. And then go look up like Gazprom, the Russian oil company executives that have been getting smoked with their families. They've all been getting suicided. The Russians have been getting suicided. The dude in Taiwan just got murked. But go look up all these like assassinations that are happening because of this stuff and like third order effects. It's fascinating. Like the world is going into a different mode right now.
And why did that happen?
Oh, so the Taiwan semiconductor guy had something to do with, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure, but it obviously had something to do with China and Taiwan and the semiconductor industry at large. I don't think it had anything to do specifically with Nancy Pelosi, but her visit there was interesting. And then the Chinese, she left. So we're recording this. She left a few days ago, and they're still, to my knowledge, the Chinese are still conducting their military exercises in like the Taiwan Strait.
Yeah.
So they're still like shooting rockets into the ocean and stuff like that. They're shooting rockets. I don't know if it's directly overflying the country, but I know they have rocket boxes on the east side of like Taiwan. I don't know how they're getting them over there, if they're directly overflying the country, because that would be wild.
Yeah.
But they're landing like close to the seas of Japan and stuff like that, or the Japanese economic exclusion zones.
And they're doing this exclusively because she paid a visit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of,
hey, we're still here.
Yeah.
Actually, I realize that as we're talking about the government ratcheting up fear, I'm sitting here ratcheting up the fear too, because I'm explaining all these things that are going on in the world. Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's like you are essentially, without knowing it, we're like not advocates, but we're like a conduit of what's going on by talking about like, hey, you need to be aware of all of this stuff to be prepared. Not saying that anything is going to happen, but just knowledge is power. Knowing what's going on around you and being completely aware of like whether it's really happening, it's not happening, it's happening close to you, it's happening way far away from you. Being fully aware of what is going on and how it could possibly affect you is super important. That's like the point of what we're talking about. But yeah, as we're talking about it, we are kicking it out to everybody else. And they're like, if you didn't know about it before right now, you're going to be like, well, I didn't know there was like a famine coming. Now I'm scared.
Yeah. We're driving it by mistake here.
Yeah.
So then what's the next question? Like, how do you manage this?
Right. And that's like, I feel like a lot of people probably, it's almost like a crushing weight, kind of like we were talking about. So you got all this stuff coming from every angle. And like, so how do you wake up every day if it's really consuming you, if it's really on your mind? Like, how do you manage dealing with it? How do you?
I assume, I think the best way to manage it is probably just avoid social media and avoid television and stuff like that. But that's impossible to do because, I mean, Social media is designed to keep you in the loop.
Yeah.
I mean, they have psychologists that study this and study how to keep people in the loop and stay in the matrix and things like that. So, I mean, by design, it's tough to get out of that, but, put timers on your apps maybe. Don't download TikTok.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier. That's like government overreach, a different government encroaching on us. And now this is another thing where definitely this has opened up a whole other door of fear for people who don't know, because I actually just found out about this the other day from something that you had sent, and it's the user agreement inside of the app TikTok, and when you agree to that, what China is allowed to do. If you want to talk about that.
I mean, so China gets access to everything on your phone. As soon as you download the TikTok app and you use it, and it'll tell you, okay, we get this, we get this, we get this. And then it gets access to any files you have on your phone, all the file names, anything that you put in your keyboard, anything that you copy and paste. So like, how you copy one thing and paste it to the other screen or whatever, that app gets to see it, because by nature of, if you might put it in their app, they need to know it's on the clipboard. So they get to see everything that's on your clipboard. If you copy and paste your passwords, it's like, oh, okay, let me go to my password manager, copy this here, paste it into the website that I'm going to. Bam, they'll get access to that. They'll get access to usernames, everything. You name it, camera, microphone, of course. I mean,
the classics,
which is why you should cover your camera. At least your front-facing camera, you should put a sticker over it. They make them. Go to Silent Pocket. They make those. They make Faraday bags. Great stuff as far as privacy goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, TikTok gets everything. So you've got TikTok, you've got Huawei, you've got Chinese companies buying farmland next to, what was it, in Iowa? Next to drone bases. Yeah. Congress was very concerned about that one. Actually, I a buddy of mine was telling me, he was like a lot of members of Congress got really, really concerned when they read about that. They were like, yeah, we got to put a stop to this thing.
And what do they call that when it's so they buy all this farmland and it's just like you end up operating on your own. You're within a country, but you are within your own, you have your own laws, and it's got a name. It's right on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember what it is. But it would be like, so if China owned so much land, and they were just like, this is ours. This is a piece of China. So now we have our own rules, laws, and regulations that we operate under that are. Is it like sovereign state or like?
I mean, maybe it sounds. I mean, that's what we do with embassies overseas. Any embassy overseas is
something like
U.S.
that.
territory, U.S. property.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Manifest destiny.
Yeah.
Do the Chinese have a word for that?
Pretty bizarre that they would be doing that. But yeah, the TikTok. So like you said that you obviously don't have it.
Definitely don't have TikTok. Nobody in my family has TikTok. I don't know anybody with TikTok.
But that's another good point. And I did talk about this with Rachel, who was on. She does a lot of like homesteading and stuff, and we were talking about how you keep your children not like growing up just in total fear of the government. So like. Obviously, kids like TikTok, and then if in your household, like we can't have this app, and obviously their first question is going to be why. How do you easily explain to them that, well, you can't have it because China is watching you through the front camera on your tablet?
Xi is watching, and you cannot have that. We do not allow that in this house.
Yeah,
but no. So the way I just tell them no. I say there's better apps. We'll find something else, find an alternative. After 5 minutes, they'll get over it. They'll forget about it.
Right.
I mean, point being. If you look at the way the algorithm works for TikTok in the U.S., it reinforces things that will dumb down the population and young Americans. So it reinforces like dances and video games and blah, blah, and yada, yada, yada. In China, the algorithm reinforces science and math and students' like achievements and things like that. And there's
within the app?
Yeah, within the app. So there's been some studies on it. It's actually really fascinating. So like in China, you will see more students being, good little communists and, loving the CCP and things like that and making great strides in rocket technology, blah, blah, yada, yada. Here in the U.S., TikTok does dances.
The opposite.
The exact opposite. Because
pushing us down the slope, them up the slope.
Yeah. It's just a nice little psychological operation that is working itself out through that.
Yeah. Very, very bizarre.
Extremely bizarre.
Yeah. But everybody has it. It's like
so
a spreading disease.
You see, there was a meme the other day. It was like, hey, so what is Instagram? It's where people over 30 can watch TikTok videos.
Yeah,
exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Exactly what it is now. And I think they changed the algorithm too, even to push their platform more to that style.
The video, just constant swiping videos. I think they actually flipped it back.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of outrage
Yeah.
and it just completely changed.
Yeah, TikTok 2.0.
Yeah, that's
as we're ratcheting up the fear again.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything else that you guys thought was safe, just let us know and we'll completely tear that down and ruin it for you as well.
Exactly.
If you want. So we've covered a lot of stuff as we kind of wind down here, because this could go on forever. If we had a live chat, we could just have people live comment in and just be like, hey, talk about this. What's wrong with this? And we could that would actually be awesome. I have to write that idea down. That would be cool. Have to see if they can get a live chat set up or have callers. Maybe we could get like a live, like a phone, and we could do guests. Would be cool. And this is another, keep cranking that ratchet of fear. So what do you think is coming down the pipeline? I know it's a huge question, but what do you think? Since if you go back, the Ukraine war and all of these issues were brought up before it happened. So Andy is...
Some might call me the Nostradamus of war.
Yeah, he's the Nostradamus of war, inflating his ego huge here, but he does have a pretty good idea of what might be out there and what's to come.
I'm with you, actually. I think the weak piece of the Ukraine problem, you're going to see this Cold War 2.0 just keep ramping up. I don't think it's been covered in the news enough how North Korea, Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, they've turned into, if anybody's familiar with Five Eye, and so on the NATO is one piece, Five Eye is another piece. Five Eye was instrumental in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's the US, Canada, Australia, the UK, and New Zealand. I think New Zealand's on their way out because they have some counterintelligence issues with the Chinese. But so these 5 countries were Five Eyes, and it was an intelligence sharing thing where if the US had intel, then they would share it with the other Five Eye nations in that group if they needed to know it. And there's 49 things like that. It's similar to NATO. It's just, it's groups of people defending each other. Now, that same model is used with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela. I might actually be missing somebody in there too. But I mean, they are the same group of 5 countries that share intelligence. If you look at the attack, like the SolarWinds cyber attack, Russia had the initial access point, and then at some point in there, they passed it off to China. And then the Chinese were in there with the Russians, and then so it was like that both of them were working against us. Right now, you see the Iranians, this is actually pretty interesting. So the Iranians are selling a lot of weapons and moving a lot of their weapons to the Russians to fight in Ukraine. Like we said earlier, the North Koreans just sent 3,000 soldiers to fight in Ukraine with the Russians. I mean, that's the equivalent of the British helping us, or any of our friends helping us. So they've got, this access, whatever you want to call it. In the past, it's been called the axis of evil, I guess. But whatever you want to call this group of five or so countries, they work together and they just keep having more dominoes fall globally. And you're going to see more. The espionage is going to take up the old Cold War I stuff that we saw, where espionage was high on the list, intellectual property theft, where it was like a counterintelligence nightmare for everybody. You're doing spy hunts every 2 days. You can't trust, you can't trust anybody in an organization because you don't know who works for who and who's compromised. I mean, that's just going to keep going and keep going. Yeah. I mean, there's rumors on the streets. There's a few articles out there that the Russians have been telling all of their friends in this group of theirs that it's open season on Westerners abroad. So it's like if you're an influential Westerner abroad, hey, it's open season. Take what you can. There were some. I want to say they were Americans. I'm not sure, but they were killed in Kurdistan by some dudes who may or may not have been paid by Iranians to carry out this kind of thing. They were definitely Westerners. I don't know if they're Americans or not. I don't remember. But you can Google it. But I mean, just that kind of thing. So I mean, we're ratcheting up this Cold War era activity. Cuba, they're another one. Cuba has a really good intelligence service. I don't think anybody understands. They've got, especially in places like Florida and Miami and things like that, but they have really aggressive intelligence service, or they used to anyway. But stuff like that, yeah. I definitely see the energy crisis. Oh yeah, the energy crisis. That's another one, right? So we've got Germany, because Russia shut off the nat gas to Europe and all of
yeah.
So I mean, that's huge. Germany's already started like rationing stuff. I was talking to somebody who lived over there the other day, and they were like, yeah, so my landlord has already told me for the last 2 months that I need to start using less of everything, less gas for the kitchen, less this, less that, less electricity, because now it's a voluntary rationing, and in a few months it'll be a mandatory rationing because they just don't have the inflows of supply from Russia and things like that. Wow.
I did, yeah. I read something about that, and I didn't really look too much into it. But yeah, I heard that like the energy crisis over there, and the price is just like soaring because.
Yeah, it's like, so when we were talking earlier about calling the bottom and stuff like that. I was thinking about it the other day. I don't know if this is the bottom. I'm not going to say it is. That would be naive. But if it is the bottom for equities and the greater markets overall, it definitely is not the bottom for the energy crisis. So it's like, if the Fed has raised interest rates enough to start dropping inflation, they're going to use CPI to measure it, which is a BS metric. So whatever, just broad brushstrokes here. If the next print is lower than whatever it was, like 9.7% or 10%, then maybe you can call the bottom here. But the energy crisis, we're not at the bottom of that whatsoever. Like, that's still going to be an issue.
Oh yeah.
We've asked OPEC to raise the ceiling of production, and they say, this is the interesting thing in the news. They say, yeah, we'll raise production by 300 million barrels or whatever, but they don't meet the production goals that they set 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like this false sense of security. It's like,
Ponzi scheme. Yeah. They're just like, yeah, there's the new number.
Yeah.
We haven't hit that.
They haven't hit the old number. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. So I have a friend in the oil and gas industry, and he is like just dead set on this. He's like, there is not enough supply to make this work, and we've been drawn out of the special drawing or our strategic oil supply. He's like, we've crumbled the strategic oil supply. There's no way that we can get that back into the numbers we needed to. XYZ. I don't know. I'm butchering this, but if he's concerned about it, then I'm definitely concerned about it.
And now we've got no supply or we've got a very low supply. So people, they'll start to be like, okay, well, travel's limited now.
Yeah.
Guess what travel limitations are? Form of control.
Yeah.
You can't travel by yourself. You need to, if you're traveling, you have to be traveling with X amount of people. Maybe one day you got to have freedom papers to travel again. I mean,
you remember when neither of us remember, but it was like, what, 1970 or was it 79 when the gas crisis happened? And it was like, you had to, I think it was something, again, somebody can fact check me on this. I'm pretty sure this is like Wikipedia knowledge, but it was either your zip code or like the last 3 digits of your license plate number were how you went and got gas on certain days. Like, they had to ration gas.
Oh, yeah,
so on certain days, on a Tuesday you get gas, on a Wednesday I get gas, and we're only allowed to have X amount of gallons. Like, wow.
I remember seeing photos from that, and it's crazy. Like,
the lines are like a mile and a half long. Just like, you'd have to push your car because you couldn't use the gas. So you push your car in the line. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what's next for us.
Who knows?
Happens again. History repeats itself, apparently.
Cold War 2.0. I think we might have just fear is one thing, but I think we've just kind of wrapped up the idea that we're in this Cold War 2.0.
Yeah. Cold War 2.0 should be the title of the podcast.
Yeah. Also,
if I am saying that, that's what it should be. So my last question to wrap it up would have been, so how do you safeguard, distance yourself from this kind of activity? And we did kind of go over that depending on what that thing is. Like, you could easily tailor your social media or not check the news, but this is, the title of this podcast is the Practical Prepper Podcast, and being prepared is definitely not being oblivious and blind to everything that's going around you. Living in some kind of bubble, pretending these things don't exist or they aren't happening and we're not talking about them is a very stupid decision. Now, there is, I think personally, maybe if you listen to a lot of podcasts like this or anything that you consume a lot of, eventually will start to change the way you think. So maybe you have built-in breaks, or if you subscribe to a certain news channel or information, maybe you're like, I only do this for X amount of hours a day, or this week I'm not going to, listen at all or tune in or something like that, to where you give your mind a standby period. They kind of let you detox a little bit. That,
go outside, right?
Yeah.
Go outside, get the fresh air.
Yeah. Exercise. Something that, because there's really no way to, if total government overreach and control comes down the pipeline, I don't know how you escape it. I guess maybe we'll figure that out when that time comes, if it ever comes.
Yeah, we're going to do another episode on how to move money overseas.
Yeah, how to escape the giant white glove in the sky. But yeah, that would be my advice. What would you say?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I'd say go outside, get the fresh air, stay in shape.
Yeah.
Do what you can for that at least.
But always stay in the know. Not knowing what's coming. Being caught by surprise is the worst possible.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught on your back foot. No. Literally stay up on the game, keep some supplies, keep some, ammunition. We didn't even talk about that. But keep some of that too. But just in case.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I think that's a good episode for the day. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Like I said, action-packed episode. One of my favorites that we've ever done. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. My personal favorite part was talking about the newfound symbols of domestic terrorism, which are absolutely insane. But you can talk about that. That's a whole other conversation for a whole other podcast that we hopefully get to cover in the future. I want to take this time to thank our sponsors at Valley Food Storage. You can take 15% off your next order with the code PRACTICAL15 at checkout. That's PRACTICAL15. They are the leader in emergency food storage. They just got new small water storage containers for those people who are concerned about where they're putting stuff and too much space being taken up. So definitely go check those out. They've got a new inflation-proof bucket that you can check out. Lots of good stuff going on over there. So go over, load up your cart, take 15% off, and get prepared. Thanks, guys.